Today is September the 19th, and the time is 9:07 a.m. I would like to call the public hearing for the City of Tampa Historic Preservation Commission. Welcome, everyone. I am Dominique Cobb, your chair of the commission. If you're here to present a request, please be thorough but concise at the microphone. Identify yourself and your relationships to the project before beginning your presentation. The commissioners will not ask any questions during the presentation. Next, we will have our staff report. Next we will present the staff report.
Can all the members introduce themselves?
My apologies, commissioners.
Susan Swift, planner, and with Boggs Design Partners and Boggs Engineering.
Carrie Ann Canch.
Missy Shoecraft.
Thank you, commissioners, for joining us today. Now we will have the reading of our minutes from the July 11th, 2023. After the reading, we can have a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
The minutes for July, we can all vote if we approve of the minutes. Say aye.
Aye.
All in favor, so moved. Now we will have any announcements.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Welcome to today's public hearing. Welcome to the public and to anyone joining us over our television network as well. We do have just one announcement. I do have an update later on the agenda, but we have completed the 2024 Historic Preservation Commission schedule, and so the new calendar is in your packets. We'll be sending that to you digitally as well. So as you know, that has our calendar of public hearing dates as well. So if you could just please note those on your calendar as we go into the next calendar year, that would be helpful. And if you see any conflicts early, please let us know so that we can make sure that we have quorums for our meeting. With that, we will move on to the disclosure of the conflicts of interest and ex parte communication, and our legal counsel, Kamaria Pettis-Mackel, will lead that discussion.
Good morning, Commissioners. Will the Commissioners please state whether or not they have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda?
None.
None.
Additionally, will the Commissioners please state whether or not they've had any ex parte communications regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, we will now administer the swear-in. Anyone in the public who is going to be providing public testimony or any information to the board, if you could please stand and raise your right hand for the swear-in, including staff.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that we provide today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. And with that, we're ready for our agenda item, which is HPC 2023-07, the proposed local landmark designation of Memorial Park Cemetery. And Elaine with the staff will present a PowerPoint to assist in the discussion.
Good morning, Commissioners. Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. We begin this morning with an overview of Memorial Park Cemetery, which is being presented to you today for consideration for local historic landmark recommendation to Tampa City Council. The Memorial Park Cemetery is located in the Belmont Heights neighborhood. It is located at 2425 East Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard at the intersection of 22nd Street and the other cross street along the north side of the boulevard there is 26th Street. You can see the aerial maps here showing the current aerial map there on your left with the red outlining the cemetery. And on the right, you can see the earliest Sanborn map on which the cemetery is labeled as the Memorial Park Cemetery. This area does appear on an earlier Sanborn map, I believe, but it is not labeled as the cemetery as such at that time. You can also see in the, on the Sanborn map, some of the historic development pattern around the area. You can see as a residential neighborhood, single-family homes and multifamily housing directly to the south. This is a 1965 aerial photograph of the cemetery. You can see it's a 20-acre cemetery. It has a rectangular plan divided into quadrants. It's landscaped with a variety of vegetation, including some very large oak trees and the arbor vitae trees, which are found throughout the cemetery. Memorial Park Cemetery opened in 1919. This is one of the early plat maps of the cemetery. The cemetery was platted into, I believe, 8 different sections, although we no longer have the majority of the plat maps for the cemetery. I believe there are 3 or 4 in our collection of different sections of the cemetery. In 1919, several Black American soldiers who had died abroad in World War I were returned home and buried in Memorial Park Cemetery. These services were attended by several people, including, and the funerals included processions led by the churches. They included bands, color guards, firing squads, the divisions of soldiers in a parade, the Red Cross nurses, and of course the family and other mourners. In 1923, a portion of the cemetery was dedicated to the Florida Negro World War Veterans Memorial, I'm just reading off the sign there. The sign does say Florida Negro World War Veterans Memorial, dedicated May 30th, 1923. This is the southwest portion of the cemetery. This area is marked with this memorial marker, and it was funded through the cooperation of the American Legion Women's Auxiliary and the Booker T. Washington branch of the Tampa chapter of the American Red Cross. This dedication of the portion of the cemetery was marked with services held by the Tampa Urban League on Memorial Day. So at this time, burial space for Black Americans was largely limited to cemeteries outside the city limits of Tampa, and Black veterans were typically not welcomed into national cemeteries in the South. This is a picture here showing that section of the cemetery, and you can see the various markers that have been provided through the armed forces and the Veterans Administration. Memorial Park Cemetery also includes some earlier burials, some of these from as early as 1906, although there may be earlier bodies buried within the cemetery, or reburials from earlier within the cemetery. It also includes burials of those who played significant and diverse roles in the history of the community, such as Christine Meacham, who was a very well-known educator and the principal at the Tampa's Harlem Academy for several years. Dr. R. Williams, who was the first Black surgeon to perform surgery in the city of Tampa. And several other people who represented the daily lives of Black Tampa, including laundresses, labor workers, stevedores, nurses, and ministers. The funerary art in the cemetery includes several different decorative elements. Many of these are either religious or secular in nature. Some of the religious symbols include lilies and wreaths, the lilies representing innocence or purity, and wreaths representing eternity. Many of the secular decorative elements are from benevolent societies and fraternal organizations, such as the one pictured here on the 1919 grave of M.F. King. This is from the Mosaic Templars of America, a mutual aid society founded by formerly enslaved people. This society offered illness and burial insurance at a time when white insurance companies would refuse black customers. Others, examples of funerary art include the headstone portraits, which are found scattered throughout the cemetery. The lamb is also an example of a religious funerary decorative element and is found frequently on the graves of children. Other types of grave markers within the cemetery include the above-ground vault and the military headstone, and some of the different shapes include the obelisk, and as opposed to the typical flat upright marker. The City of Tampa's code for landmark designation requires us to look at Section 27257, in which it directs us to consider whether the property has been constructed or achieved significance during the period of historic significance, which is generally accepted as at least 50 years ago. The cemetery was established in 1919, thereby well meeting that 50-year date. The cemetery may also be found to be associated with events that have been made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of our history. This is similar to National Criterion A in the areas of community planning and development and military history. These burials are veterans of the American wars of the 19th and 20th centuries, and the cemetery is found in a historically segregated community. This cemetery is associated with the lives of persons significant in our past in the area of ethnic heritage, as I discussed earlier with the examples of Christina Meacham and Dr. Williams. And the cemetery embodies the distinctive characteristics of a type, period, or method of construction, or represent the work of a master, or possesses high artistic values. And it does that in the area of art, as most gravestones are decorated with religious or secular funerary art. The cemetery is owned by the City of Tampa. The designation application was also authorized by the city's mayor, Jane Castor, I believe on June 14th, following an outpouring of public support. And public notice was completed over 30 days prior to the Historic Preservation Commission hearing today. At this point, we have completed the application for designation has been received, and we have done a significant amount of staff research, community outreach, and the report production. We would particularly like to thank the Friends of the Belmont Height Memorial Park Cemetery for their assistance and collaboration on the designation report. If the Historic Preservation Commission recommends today that the Memorial Park Cemetery should be considered by City Council as a local historic landmark designation, then this one public hearing will move forward the designation process. Following this, the Planning Commission will have a 30-day staff review period to determine whether or not the local designation is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. And then the City Council will have a two-hearing process to consider the actual landmark designation of the cemetery. The designation of the cemetery will bring recognition and protection to a very unique historic resource that remains an important part of Tampa's Black history. Will confirm the city's commitment to the preservation of the historic assets of the East Tampa community, and will hopefully increase grant funding opportunities for current and future maintenance needs of the cemetery. Staff finds that the property meets the criteria for local historic landmark designation found in section 27257 of the city's code. And your action here today is to determine whether to recommend this property to City Council for local historic landmark designation. I believe that completes the presentation, so I'm available if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. There was so much information that I believe not only the commissioners, but the community definitely can benefit from. So thank you so much. Dennis?
Thank you, Elaine, for that wonderful presentation, as always. Did want to say that following public comment, if you have questions of the staff, of course, we'll be here to answer those. Also joining us this morning is Lisa Grizzle with the City of Tampa Parks Department, who has been managing the cemetery for quite a while now, even prior to the city's ownership of it. So she's able to provide you some additional information or respond to questions that you may have. At this time, we can welcome public comment. Each of our, each individual's going to be allowed 3 minutes of comment, and then following that, you can go into questions.
All right, thank you. Also, if you have just arrived, if you have not been sworn in, if you can please stand to do so. If not, we will be opening public comment. Also, I want to add, for the sake of time, so that we don't lose quorum, if you can keep your comment at 3 minutes. And we did in the packet receive an additional comment that was received after the permitted time, so staff does have that, and we have been informed. So if you would like to make a public comment, please come forward, give your name, address, and you can start. Thank you.
Good morning. I am here to support Memorial Park Cemetery as a local historic designation.
Can you please say your name for the record?
Sure, my apologies. Eileen Henderson,
An address?
914 West Fribley Street, Tampa. I'm hoping that what I heard in the presentation has made its way to the report, most specifically as it relates to Black Americans. That report repeatedly used the word African American, which is offensive and wrong. Tampa is made up of a diverse Black community, and the cemetery reflects that with those buried there. The initial report, as written, was unacceptable. We haven't had an opportunity to see those revisions. I've only heard this presentation this morning. But what I read in that initial report should not move forward. It's inaccurate, and again, it's offensive. So again, what I saw today is not what I read before. My challenge is, as this continues to move forward, we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to review it, to make sure that it's right. The other challenge that I have in reviewing other historic designations, and one pending currently, is a copy and paste for the historic context. And the relevancy in that copy and paste with regards to Florida has nothing to do with the area for the historic designation. That's perplexing to me, especially if we're copy and pasting. How many times have we done this? Where's the research? You're the Historic Preservation Commission. You need to dig deep and give us what we should have with regards to the history of the areas, especially as it relates to Memorial Park Cemetery and the Johnson Brothers homes. I'm extremely disappointed. And shame on all of you for letting this happen. But let me tell you, I'm watching, and just like historic Belmont Heights, we're now woke and we're paying attention. So I'm hoping you give us that opportunity to review this to make sure that it is accurate and no longer offensive. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Noreen Copeland Miller, and I live in historic Bama Heights neighborhood. First, I want to thank Dennis Fernandez and his staff for allowing my group to be a part of it. I am the founder of the Friends of Bama Heights Memorial Park Cemetery. And I do want to thank his staff for allowing us to give them feedback. I did hear a change made, and thank you when you said the Bama Heights neighborhood. So that is one of our concerns, but we were very glad to get the draft and have the opportunity to know that you put a lot of work into it. But again, we did have some concerns because I had the opportunity on Friday to go to USF to look at the exhibit about what lies beneath. And I do encourage you guys, if you get the opportunity, to go there because they have a lot of information about the black cemeteries in Hillsborough County that's been built on and developed on and out in unincorporated Hillsborough County that's been forgotten. But in that exhibit, Memorial Park Cemetery is mentioned, along with Robles Park and Zion and others. So I really would like for us, as we have requested, to be a part of the final product. But I think this is a great opportunity to have a workshop on the black cemeteries, on cemeteries, period, in Hillsborough County, in the city of Tampa, that have been forgotten. And it's people of color and other cemeteries that's here. But I think it's an opportunity to have a workshop, and we can all really perfect that document. And I'm looking forward to it being a local designated, historical local designated spot, so we can get some protection there and also secure that property so that it gets the pride, get the respect that it deserves for those souls that are there, and especially for our veterans that's in there. And it's over 900 of them. So we're looking to work with the city to make that the showcase that it can be. Also be able to talk about the rich history that's in there and make sure that our children know our black history. And a lot of the things that people that are buried there have built this city on their backs through sweat and just being a part of this community. So thank you very much for the work you've done. We want to make sure that we're part of that final product. And thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity. And Commission, I know that you all going to review that document again once it's finalized. But thank you.
Good morning, Commission members. Ray Reed, 1421 Hilton Place, Tampa, Florida, in northeast section of Old Seminole Heights. And I came to this dance in January of 2015 and had no idea what I was getting into when I started looking into cemeteries. And for 4 years was treated as a nut until I got a hold of Paul Guzzo and told him about Zion and others, and lo and behold, I wasn't as crazy as people thought I was. Staff did a lot of work on the presentation. I urge you, please, please, whatever can be done to move the designation status forward on this and hopefully other cemeteries that'll be coming before you. But I have a 10-page document that I sent, apologize for the lateness, it was 30, I cut it down, on some comments, technical and otherwise, mainly on the historic section. Tampa's history, the real history of Tampa, is not the sweet little saccharine stories that we tell of, Hortensia and the clock tower or whatever. It's ugly. The people in power down here, whether you were an immigrant or you were a person of falling under that band of colored, black, African American, biracial, whatever, because black is too narrowing. We've got to find a word that's so encompassing of all these people who are buried at Memorial Park and Zion and Robles Pond, which is same name, St. Joseph's on 34th Street. In what I sent are some news articles, including 1916, the mayor of Tampa and the police, they instituted the equivalent would be a $5,000 license for northern labor recruiters to have to pay unless they get arrested for talking to down here a person of color, telling them about opportunities, good housing, education. You don't have to worry about your kids disappearing or you being beaten by whomever as you're walking home, and a chance to actually get ahead. And it's from the mayor of Jacksonville sent a letter to the mayor of Tampa. So hands aren't clean at the most highest government levels here. 500 of your Negroes came through our city yesterday on their way north. And the Mayor McKay replied, yes, this is what we're doing. And things like that. And then even in 1933, a new cemetery on 22nd Street was opened between Hillsborough and Osborne called Shadow Lawn. First gentleman, it was black. Went into dusk. The next morning, his body and the casket are down at Memorial Park with a sign on it about these don't go in our white neighborhood. Today is the 61st anniversary of the murder of Mr. John Henry Bradley, either age 15 or 16, shot in the back at 70 yards by Tampa officer Cecil Fox, white, while running away from a closed restaurant. He's in your cemetery on 22nd Street because the county cemetery, as of 1954, that's why you closed Ridgewood and sold the land off, because you started burying your bodies at the Hillsborough County Cemetery. And he's under 1160, anonymous. And I'm
Thank
gonna
you,
tell
sir.
that.
I appreciate your time. We did receive your packet, and this is a wealth of information. Yes, the city has a sordid past of how they have dealt with Black African Americans and brown people. So hopefully, with the information we've received here and what will go forward with council in hopes of this moving forward, there will be more information that could be shared because our history has continued to be lost. So thank you again.
As long as I'm breathing, if I can help in any way, please don't hesitate to call on me.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Again, I want to make sure we do not lose quorum. If you have any public comments, please come forward. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Carolyn Collins, 4002 West LaSalle Street, Tampa. I came here because it was the regular meeting for the historical group. Now that I'm here and I'm hearing about the Memorial Park, and I knew that there would be some discussions, I just want to make sure that I cast my concern, my vote for this to move forward as a historical designation. And it'll afford me the opportunity as the chair of the board of directors for the Jackson House Foundation to indicate that there are some other prominent individuals there, and I would just add this in passing, that both Willie Robinson and his mother, Mrs. Sarah, are buried in a plot, and I think it's a six-family plot. And so I'm looking forward to this because we want to do something special within their family plot as well. So I would ask that you consider the work of those who have spoken and those perhaps who have done work who's not here, and recognize and honor that very historical cemetery here in the city of Tampa. Thank you so much.
At the time, if there is any more public comments, we will close for this time and open up for the commissioners for discussion.
Mine was the criterion D, because we don't
Can you
know.
speak a little
Oh,
louder?
sorry. Oh, Carrie Ann Camp. Yeah, oh, no. I'm, what we have on our, sheet for the actual designation, or, the case. Criterion D, where it says that it could yield, or is likely to yield information important in prehistory and history. I think that's significant, because we don't know who's buried there, who's buried there.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. Criterion D is typically reserved for archaeological sites.
Okay.
I think if we haven't really seen it expanded into application for cemeteries a lot, although I can see how under certain circumstances, certain cemeteries, it could well be applicable, yes.
Okay.
Well, I'm not sure, maybe there could be some clarification, but isn't there a ground penetration that is going on right now at the site? So wouldn't that be considered archaeology?
Good Good morning, Commissioners. Once again, as Elaine was saying, typically archaeological activities usually deals with some sort of excavation. So I think with ground penetrating radar, these are technologies that have been emerging over the last few years and probably haven't found a place within the National Register criteria yet. So we usually move quite conservatively on those. I think, that you can also make a case of genealogy with GPR as well. So I think it's really, this is a local designation. In your capacity, you can certainly modify the criteria. However, we usually try to model what the National Register of Historic Places would apply. We use their criteria converted into our code, and we did not feel that D would be an area. However, having, criteria A, B, and C is very strong. So I wouldn't feel compelled to sort of, have an additional criteria if we weren't absolutely certain that it applied.
I have a quick comment, and this is, I'm glad she's back. So I've certainly heard everybody's comments today, and especially the ones that there's either possibilities of inaccuracies and so on. So one of the things that I think that we as a board take a look at, of course, are the staff reports. These documents, though, are really living, breathing documents. And by that I mean this particular report is basically to help us make a decision as to whether we should designate this a local historic landmark. And there are very specific criteria from the Park Service and also in the city code as to whether something meets that standard or not. That said, there will be and should be more information coming forward. For example, Mr. Reed, you presented this report to us, which most of us, I think, have tried to read since we got it yesterday. And over time, there will be more information that comes up, and all of that will be incorporated into the historical file for this cemetery. So this document that we have in front of us, this report, is just the beginning. This is what gives us the authority to make a recommendation that this be designated. It is not the end-all and be-all of information regarding this particular property. And we hope, and I know the staff will continue to receive additional information from everybody, and we would encourage you to do that, particularly information that has a citation to it. It always makes it easier. But nevertheless, again, this is a living, breathing document.
If I could just add just momentarily, just to respond, because we do always strive to be accurate and complete and inclusive in this process, and so we welcomed comments from the public, but particularly in this situation from these individuals who have been engaged in the preservation of Tampa's cemeteries prior to this designation initiative. So we did receive comments. I had attended one of the meetings and spoken or emailed with Ms. Copeland Miller several times, and we did receive comments in early September, and we've tried to include those in the updated report. I believe when I sent the report to you, I mentioned that we were still adding information into it. We didn't want to delay today's hearing because it's just so important to move the process forward on a property like this. But we'll continue to work and to represent the facts as accurately as possible. As far as formatting of the document, we've had previously discussed formatting with the commission and came up with the format that we use. If there's a need to update that, we can and talk about that in the future. But we do feel that it does address the points that are reflected in the city's code. You do have to have a substantial and competent evidence that the code requirements are being met in order to move this forward through the designation process. And we feel that those eligibility criterion that we were just discussing are accurate and reflect the particular property that we're dealing with, and will hopefully have the intended effect, which would be to, celebrate its history, bring recognition to it, and provide protection and funding opportunities that may not currently exist. So the other body of the historical background and context we can continue to add to up to the point where we go to city council. So we're more than happy to do that and to try to correct any types of insensitivities that we may be not as familiar with as the Friends of Belmont Heights Memorial Park Cemetery group.
I have a question, but first to add on to what Commissioner Shoecraft has said and Mr. Fernandez, there's so much information that this report is a summary of the findings of what the staff has access to, and this could be, the information is probably boxes worth of information on not only this site, but heaven knows all the other cemeteries that we're now aware of. So I don't think it's possible to include everything, but I think this report speaks to the criteria that our decision or our recommendation has to be based on. We understand that there's tons of other information that is available right in this building and with the staff, but our report and our job is to focus on the criteria in the local code. And then my question is, Ms. Lund, could you pull up the art, the examples of the art on Criterion C? I think that is something that, again, in the report and to everyone who has spoken, of the point of awareness. And when I first read the report, it's like, really, art? And then when I saw all these examples and the education behind it, that certainly I wasn't aware of this particular organization, the MTA, the Mosaic Temple of America, but there are certainly, that's an important factor, and again, is in the report, but there's probably, again, pages and pages and tons of information about the background and how this community was not able to get insurance, and so these types of organizations existed in order to provide insurance and care for these communities. And I think those, the fact that, again, you peel off some of this information, that first we were just talking about art and how it relates to the criterion, but then you find not only is it of artistic value, but part of the story and what they had on their headstones, some people had on their headstones, gives a whole other layer of history and awareness and facts to this story that, you know, we are finally uncovering. No, pun intended. So thank you for your comments, and I just wanted to highlight the art again.
Right, at this time, the commissioners have reviewed the information. Is it possible that we can get a motion, or is there more time for discussion? Would anyone like to put forth a motion?
Madam Chair, can you please close the public hearing?
My apologies. At the time the public hearing is closed,
And now you can make your motion.
and now we are available to make a motion. Thank you.
Is that okay?
Want to take a stand?
Sure.
I would, but I can't.
Let's go. There it is.
Sorry. 2 pages.
This is regarding the HBC 2023-07 Memorial Park Cemetery. I move to recommend that Tampa City Council approve the request to designate the Memorial Park Cemetery located at 2425 East Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard for local historic landmark designation because the application meets the criteria established in City of Tampa Code 27-257 for the following reasons. A, the building, site, structure, object, or district was constructed or achieved this significance during the period of historic significance as delineated in the National Register of Historic Places. It also has a quality of significant in American state or local history. And that's criterion A, 1 and 2. Criterion C, in addition to the criteria set forward in subsections A and B above, the HPC and City Council shall consider the following factors for a landmark designation, whether the owner supports the designation, which it does. There is obviously no economic hardship criteria applied to this recommendation, so that is my motion.
Maria Pettis-Malcolm from the Legal Department. Commissioner Shoecraft, can you
Yes.
please just clarify in your motion that it's section 1A, you address 1, subsection 1, A1, and then you also mentioned A2. What is can you explain in your motion which criteria, national criteria, are you saying that the property meets? Is it criteria A, criteria B, criteria C?
Oh, I see. The applicant, the designation criteria, it would be criterion A, B, and C specifically.
I second the motion.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
The board, or I'm sorry, the commissioner unanimously passes the preservation for Memorial Park Cemetery. Thank you, everyone who have dedicated their time. Ms. Noreen, I appreciate you all, the history. It needs to be said. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, at this time, ooh, thank you. I think we still have more to do? Yeah, okay. Okay.
Oh, we're gonna lose our
Thank you,
quorum here.
Commissioner Shugraf.
Can I just get one more minute, Missy? Just to close out the meeting, because we'll lose our quorum without you.
Yes, she needed for that.
A motion to receive and file, please, all the documents.
Yes, at this time, could we have a motion to receive the documents for this?
I move that we receive and file all of the documents received.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
And our, did she adjourn? Yeah, just our next meeting is November 14th, 2023 at 9 a.m. And I did want to mention that we just finished the draft report from the previous case yesterday, having just a very challenging time frame on it. So I will distribute that to the public digitally today, and then we'll continue the dialogue on the details of the report. Thank you.
At this time, we can adjourn. The time is 9:51 a.m. You all have a good day. Bye-bye.